Hi, this is Jack Daulton. I'm traveling around the world again with National Geographic expeditions. Today we are at the site of Machu Picchu, the fabled citadel of Machu Picchu, in the cloud forest of the Andes of Peru. We began our journey this morning in Cusco, the capital city of the Inca Empire, and we traveled by train about 75 or 80 miles into the sacred valley of the Inca, along the Urubamba River, which is tributary to the Amazon, until we reached the town of Aguas Calientes, which is located about 800 or 900 feet below the citadel of Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu was constructed, we believe, in the mid to late 15th century. We further believe that it functioned as a royal estate, a country home of the Inca king or emperor in the mountains. However, much of what we know about the Incas and their empire and their architecture is speculative, because the Incas had no written language and therefore left no written record. In the 16th century, the Incas were conquered by the Spanish, specifically between 1532 and 1572. Remote sites like Machu Picchu fell into obscurity. In fact, it's believed that the Spanish never reached Machu Picchu. Furthermore, it's believed that the Incas abandoned this site for some unknown reason before the Spanish conquest. In any case, the site was overgrown by the jungle in the ensuing centuries and largely forgotten about. The local people in this area, of course, knew of its existence, and it was visited by a couple of Europeans in the late 19th or early 20th centuries, but they did not provide detailed reports. However, in 1911, a young Yale University assistant professor of Latin American history, Hiram Bingham, came to the site and spent an afternoon here. When he returned to the U.S., he reported what he found to Yale University and to the National Geographic Society. And those two institutions provided further support, which allowed Hiram Bingham to return in 1912. Hiram Bingham's 1912 Yale expedition, the purpose of that expedition was to clear the site of the jungle and to document the process with photography. His photo documentation of the site as he encountered it and as it was being cleared of the jungle is perhaps Hiram Bingham's greatest contribution to the archaeology of Machu Picchu. He took approximately 12,000 photographs during that expedition, a complete set of which is held by the National Geographic Society. When he returned to the United States in 1913, National Geographic devoted one entire issue of the magazine to Hiram Bingham's discoveries at Machu Picchu and included about 244 photographs taken by the expedition. It was the publication of that issue of National Geographic magazine which brought Machu Picchu to the attention of the world at large and gave it the fame, led to the fame it has today. It's the most visited, most famous archaeological site in South America and one of the most famous archaeological sites in the entire world. Hiram Bingham returned to the site again in 1915, and then in the succeeding decades, archaeology has been conducted here by other Americans and of course Peruvians as well as by other archaeologists from other parts of the world. You can see behind me part of the site. Principally what you're looking at behind me is what's known as the lower sector. The site was divided into an upper sector and a lower sector, which was typical of Inca urban planning. The lower sector was devoted to the mundane. The residential buildings are located there. Workshops are located there. Whereas in the upper sector, we have more sacred buildings, temples. Also the residences of the Inca king himself are located, we believe, in the upper sector of Machu Picchu. Behind me you can also see part of a large peak. That peak is known as Huayna Picchu. It anchors the southern end of the site. The northern end of the site, Huayna Picchu anchors the northern end of the site. The southern end of the site is anchored by Machu Picchu. And the citadel of Machu Picchu sits on a ridge or saddle between these two peaks, Huayna Picchu and Machu Picchu. It's a spectacularly situated site. There's probably no other archaeological site in the world that is quite as spectacular as this. Today the weather was rather rainy, misty, and it added to the magic and mystery of the site. It was an extraordinary experience to walk through the site today, even though we encountered a bit of rain. It did not dampen our spirits, and we had a wonderful visit. We're moving on now, finishing our visit to the site. We're heading back to Cusco, again on the train, the famous and luxurious Hiram Bingham train. Probably arrive back in Cusco at 10:30, just in time to celebrate New Year's Eve in Cusco. And I hope to go to the Plaza de Armas, which is the Times Square of the Andes, to join in the celebrations tonight as we bring in the new year. So thank you very much.